we're heading to Australia, where life is never quite the same again there either. In fact, I've been reading the Sunday Morning Herald this morning, the Australian. Well, let's go and talk to Jaqui now. And Jaqui Lane is joining us from, where are you today, Jaqui? In Sydney?
I'm still in Sydney, and before we get started, you're going to laugh at this. My father, if you remember, was a dentist.
Oh my God, he was a dentist. That's right. Yes, yes.
And
I forgot.
And there was a particular incident in Palmerston North where he helped you out.
He did. He did, and I'm so glad he didn't get into med school. It's fantastic. Yeah, you're right. I'll tell us a little story. Can I tell the story, Jack?
Of course you can.
Thank you, darling. Jack, we was working at that time for the National Party, and she had done her, did you do your master's degree at Auckland, was it?
Correct, Masters in Politics.
Masters in Politics. So the National Party picked her up, and they thought that Jack was going to be, and you were destined to be, the bright, hot young thing. And they gave her a paying job to basically get other bright, hot young things into the National Party, because the National Party was not a repository for bright, hot young people. As I think I mentioned in my book, I don't think I've ever met so many young nationals in particular who are in such urgent need of a blowjob. Anyhow, the reality was, though, that Jack and I we went to this conference, of Young Nationals Conference at the time, and it was the same venue as a Vietnam Veterans Conference. And there were some pretty damaged people came back from Vietnam, weren't there, Jack?
There sure were.
Because both in New Zealand and Australia, because they fought in Vietnam, lost, friends, comrades, and then when they came back to New Zealand and to Australia, were booed in the streets by people and felt as if they were persona non grata. So anyhow, this was a Vietnam Veterans Conference, and there was a lot of alcohol consumed. And one of the, I should never have stepped in now, I think, Jack. But no. One of the, I shouldn't have done a bloody thing, but there you go, particularly because it was a journo that I was rescuing. The journalist came to this particular conference at Palmerston North, I think it was at the Fitzherbert Hotel at the time. And one of the Vietnam Rets was drunk, belligerent, and started to pour at the wife of one of the journalists who was covering this particular conference. Remember, there were the two conferences, the Vietnam Vets and the Young Nats, were in the same venue, which was, asking for trouble, basically.
I was going to say bad planning, but there you are.
That's right. There you go. God. It was sort of like a white Mele massacre. Anyhow, what happened next was that I foolishly tried to intervene and say to this man, excuse me, but I don't think that action is required. Thank you very much. And it was because I didn't consider that the journo was physically strong enough to protect his wife. He was quite a slim, slight person. She was a very attractive lady, and he was a big, hulking Vietnam vet. I found out later he was a security officer at Christchurch Airport. Anyhow, so he said, "Oh no, fair enough, mate." And he said, "No, fair enough." And he put his hand out to shake it. I thought, okay, I've diffused the situation. Went to put out my hand to shake it, and he headbutted me. Bang! Huge. A 6'2" man. Little be me, headbutt. And my teeth went backwards, didn't they, Jack?
They sure did.
And Jack said, "Fortunately, Michael, my father, who's a dentist, who resides in Palmerston North, can look at this." And it was late on a Friday night. Your father had, I think he was on his second or third whiskey at the time, but it didn't matter what it was. And he said, "Oh, boy, you better come now." So he took me late on a Friday night, must be about 10 or 11 o'clock, Jack.
Yep,
and straightened my teeth and saved my tooth, I have to say. So there's the story. So I'm so glad. Yes, that's a great story, Jack. Thank you very much too.
It's all right. Go the dentists.
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go. You see, my life was saved. The postscript of that was that police decided not to prosecute him. the chap had committed the assault and was doing the sort of sexual thingy beforehand, on the basis that he was damaged or disturbed, Jack. Did you know that? That was the postscript.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
No, they reckon he had some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder or something like that related to Vietnam. And when they looked at his case, they decided not to.
And I think back then PTSD really wasn't a thing, so that was quite enlightened in a way that they kind of, I don't know, but certainly it's now much more talked about, and yeah, plenty of not just Vietnam vets, other vets, you know, and medical people and others suffer from it.
So they recommended his discharge without conviction.
Right.
And the judge said, right, that's fair enough, but Mr. Laws has suffered, so you pay him $1,000, right? $1,000. Yeah, which was obviously meant to pay for your father's dental work, which was free. And I was thinking, oh, wow, this has all turned out quite well then. And as you would imagine, the $1,000 never arrived. So, you know, yeah, that was the postscript. All right. Thank you, Jack. Hey, listen, just before we start, Channel 9 in your country is an enormously, it is the TV channel. I think it's the most popular. Is that right, Jack?
Oh, yeah, probably. It's up there, yeah.
Who's it owned by?
Past publicly listed company.
Oh, okay, because I thought it was Murdoch or something initially.
No, he owns something else.
Oh, he owns Fox, does he?
Yeah,
Fox,
correct.
Fox News, yeah, okay. And Sky, is it Sky News in Australia he owns?
Correct.
Right. Anyhow, and so they're very prominent. They've been a serious part of the entertainment and sporting landscape of Australia. As Jack said, probably got more viewers than anybody else. But they are in foment at the moment to do with bullying and sexual assaults and a whole series of other things against women and folk. Have I read that right?
Yeah, pretty much. They sacked their head of news, and you know, of course, Peter Costello, you know, was the chair. Anyway, they've had a whole series of things. So the board rightly, you know, undertook an independent inquiry, and shock horror, it actually probably has been reasonably independent, and they've made it public, and it is damning. And I think the figure was 46% of people who were interviewed or whatever, and that was voluntary. You know, complained about sexual harassment, general harassment, bullying. So almost half the workforce in the news section, basically they're living in a culture of fear and bullying. So that report landed yesterday, and the head of the news was on leave because of it. So it's it's pretty damning, but in a way it's pretty amazing that the report's been released. And they're being very kind of upfront about it. And, of course, they have a new chairman and, you know, we'll have a new head of news, and there's probably some more heads to roll. But kind of everybody in the news, everybody in the media and news knew about this.
Yes.
And so it's that classic case of everyone knows and no one says anything until somebody says something.
Mm. No names have been named in the report, although, as you say, the former news and current affairs boss, I think it was Darren Wick, left the building. So there's a bit more to go on that particular issue, because it seems that the people who've committed the bullying are still working in the organisation, yeah? Or some of.
Yeah, you'd assume so if you know 46% of people who are working there saying that it's endemic. So it will be interesting to see what happens over the next 6 months and who's there and who's not.
In lots of ways, Channel 9 is an example of what I'd call the yobbo culture of Australia and Australian men in particular. Would I be right in thinking that?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it yobbo, but it's certainly there's, I think, a masculinity kind of bullying aspect that's not too far below the surface for a number of Australian males. Not all, but a number.
Okay. But that does seem a difference. Australian men seem much more What's the word? Is the right word aggressive or assertive?
Aggressive, I think.
Is it when they're sober or when they're drunk or both?
Probably more drunk than sober.
So why
also,
are Australian men more aggressive than New Zealand men when it comes to that? There's a cultural question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm equipped to answer that. I think that the blokey culture around sport and clubs and drinking, there's a massive kind of drinking to get, completely smashed culture here. Seems to be, the norm. And you see it every other week, where you see it in the AFL and the league. I've just had another blow up where they've just had a bad, I think it was Panthers lost, and they had a big boozy thing where they got a blow up doll to their party, and it doesn't even bear talking about. So there is that culture around sport, particularly, and sporting clubs.
No, the Panthers won. Penrith beat the Storm, remember?
So probably wrong code and wrong team. Sorry, everybody. It shows you how much I follow it. But, I'd say that there's a pretty horrible culture around a lot of sporting clubs.
Yeah, rugby league does seem to have a news scandal every day rather than every week.